Melania Trump stepped onto the live TV segment that was being aired to millions of viewers across the nation, few could have predicted the monumental response she would deliver. This moment, which left a liberal host speechless and the studio, audience in awe, became a defining moment in her public career. It was a fiery response that would go down in history as one of the most unforgettable exchanges in the political and media landscape. It all started when Melania was invited to speak on a popular live television talk show hosted by a well-known liberal pundit who had made a name for himself with his sharp criticisms of the Trump family. For weeks, the media buzzed with speculation about what the First Lady would discuss, knowing that her presence on a platform like this would provide a rare opportunity for her to express herself. However, no one anticipated the tension that would rise between the host and Melania. The host, renowned for his progressive viewpoints, began the interview in what appeared to be an almost gentle manner, asking Melania about her life in the White House and the pressures that came with being in the public eye. But, as the conversation progressed, it became clear that the tone was shifting. His questions grew pointed, sometimes sarcastic, and even critical of her husband, former President Donald Trump. He asked her, "You've been at the heart of the Trump administration for years. Your husband has been a lightning rod for criticism. How do you manage to keep your composure in the face of relentless attacks on your family? Don't you ever get angry?" Melania, ever poised and graceful, smiled and took a moment to compose herself. Her response was calm yet laced with conviction. "You know, being a part of this family, and especially being in the public eye as First Lady, does bring its challenges. But it also gives me the platform to speak for those who don't have a voice. And I choose to focus on the work, on the causes that matter. Anger is not something that helps you move forward. Action does," she said, her voice steady. The host, clearly trying to provoke a deeper response, leaned forward, his face serious. "But isn't it difficult to be associated with a man who has been accused of so many things? You've been supportive of him publicly, despite the criticism. Can you tell us how you reconcile your position with everything that's been said?" At this moment, the audience could sense the shift in Melania's demeanor. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing just enough for the host to understand that she was not going to let him off the hook so easily. She replied, her voice unflinching and direct. "I have always supported my husband because I believe in him. I believe in his vision for this country. I've been married to him for many years, and I know him better than anyone else. The media and the critics will say what they want to say, but I don't pay attention to the noise. My focus is on the people who voted for him, the people who believe in his policies, and the people who are benefiting from the changes he's made." The host, taken aback for a moment, tried to steer the conversation in another direction. "But Melania, surely you understand that many people feel betrayed by some of the things he's done, especially when it comes to policies that seem to hurt the most vulnerable in society." Melania's eyes flashed with a mix of resolve and indignation. Her voice rose, but not with anger, more with the force of someone who had long endured unfair criticism and had finally had enough. "You say hurt the most vulnerable, but that's not the full story, is it? Look at the jobs that have been created. Look at the way the economy was thriving before the pandemic. Look at the criminal justice reform that my husband has championed, which directly helped people who were forgotten for so long. The media doesn't want to show that. They would rather focus on negativity and division. But I'm not going to sit here and let you distort the facts. The truth is out there if you're willing to see it." The host was stunned into silence. He blinked rapidly, caught off guard by the power and clarity of Melania's words. He had clearly expected her to buckle under the pressure of his aggressive questioning, to stammer or hesitate. Instead, she was composed, passionate, and unwavering. "Fine." Studio audience, who had been silent until that point, began to murmur in approval. Some even clapped, while others looked at each other in disbelief. The tension in the air was palpable. The host, recovering from his shock, tried to regain control of the conversation. "Melania, I think you're missing the point. People are upset because they feel like the administration's policies are doing more harm than good. Don't you think there's a disconnect between your support for him and the reality that many Americans are struggling? But Melania was having none of it. She was ready for this. Struggling? She echoed. The American people have always been resilient. And yes, there are challenges, but my husband has always prioritized the needs of the American people. We've seen wages rise, unemployment fall, and for the first time in a long time, people felt like they were winning again. The people who were left behind before, those people are finally getting a fair shot. It's easy to focus on the complaints, but I believe in the strength and spirit of this country, and I believe that President Trump has done more to uplift America than any of his predecessors in recent history. The host, visibly frustrated but trying to keep his composure, shot back, "You're speaking from a place of privilege, Melania. Not everyone shares your perspective. People are angry." Melania didn't flinch. "I understand anger. I understand frustration. But anger does not lead to progress. My husband has always said that to make real change, you need to work hard, stay focused, and never give up. That's what America has always been about. We are a country built on the idea that anyone, no matter their background, can achieve greatness. The anger you speak of? That's the result of people losing sight of what really matters." For a moment, the host had no words. He looked at Melania, trying to process her directness, her conviction. This was not the response he had expected. He had anticipated a softer, more defensive reply, something that could be manipulated or ridiculed. Instead, he had encountered a first lady who was unapologetically confident in her beliefs and her support for her husband. Finally, he managed to ask, "But Melania, what about the allegations against him? The accusations of misconduct? How do you reconcile with that?" Melania's face softened just slightly, but there was a clear determination in her eyes. "The truth is that my husband has faced relentless attacks, most of them baseless, and some of them have been proven to be false. He's not perfect. None of us are. But he has always fought for what he believes in. And when people try to tear him down, I stand by him, because I know who he is, and I know what he has done for this country." At this point, the host had nothing left to say. He sat back, his mouth slightly agape, clearly speechless. He had no retort. The audience, which had been eagerly awaiting his next question, could only watch in stunned silence as Melania Trump had turned the tables, leaving her liberal counterpart utterly without words. The exchange was so powerful that it quickly went viral. News outlets reported on the fiery moment, with many commentators praising Melania for her poise, her strength, and her unwavering defense of her husband and the administration. The liberal host, on the other hand, became the subject of mockery, with social media users highlighting how he had been outmaneuvered and outclassed by the First Lady's sharp and measured response. For Melania, this moment was not just an opportunity to defend her husband, but also to showcase her own voice and position in the political landscape. Often in the shadow of her husband's larger-than-life presence, she had now taken center stage in a way that was impossible to ignore. She had shown the world that she was more than just the wife of a former president. She was a woman with her own convictions, her own voice, and a fierce determination to stand up for what she believed in. As the interview came to an end, the host, still somewhat dazed by the exchange, offered a half-hearted thank you. Melania, with a dignified nod, stood up and walked off the stage, leaving behind a moment that would be remembered for years to come. The media buzzed with reactions to her epic reply. Some called it a masterclass in political conversation, while others simply marveled at her ability to remain composed and articulate in the face of a hostile interviewer. Regardless of the opinions expressed, one thing was clear. Melania Trump had made her mark on live TV, leaving an indelible impression that would not soon be forgotten. For the liberal host, the encounter became a defining moment in his career. As well, while his audience may have expected him to challenge Melania more aggressively, they soon realized that not every confrontation could be won with sharp words or cutting commentary. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply to speak with conviction and stand firm in one's beliefs. Melania Trump had done just that, and in doing so, she had left a lasting legacy on that live television broadcast. The fiery exchange would go down in history as one of the most unforgettable moments of the Trump era, cementing Melania Trump's placed not just as the First Lady, but as a force to be reckoned with in the political and media landscape. As the days went by, the aftermath of Melania Trump's remarkable TV moment continued to reverberate throughout the media. The interview, which had been widely anticipated, had turned into something far more significant than anyone could have imagined. Melania's words, her tone, and the calm yet powerful way she dismantled her interviewers' pointed criticisms made headlines across the country. The exchange had transcended the typical political discourse, captivating not just her supporters, but also those who had once dismissed her as little more than a figurehead. News outlets, both conservative and liberal, were quick to weigh in on the event. On one hand, conservative commentators praised Melania for her grace and her unwavering defense of her husband's policies. Many saw it as a moment of strength, a demonstration that she was more than capable of holding her own in the high-stakes world of political media. Melania Trump shut down her interviewer with the precision and poise of a seasoned political operator. One headline read, while another described her as the unsung hero of the Trump administration. On the other hand, liberal critics, who had initially hoped the interview would expose cracks in her support for her husband's controversial presidency, were left reeling. The host, who had tried to goad her into an emotional or defensive outburst, found himself caught off guard by Melania's cool confidence. Pundits on the left attempted to regroup and offer their own take on the situation, but they found it difficult to critique someone who had so effectively turned the tables on her opponent. The conversation quickly shifted from questioning her loyalty to her husband to discussing her impressive composure and ability to handle a tough interview. The viral reaction was instantaneous. Social media platforms exploded with clips from the interview, with users sharing their favorite moments and praising Melania's powerful response. Memes began to circulate, and hashtags like Melania Trump, fiery reply, and speechless host began trending across Twitter. Even celebrities who were known for their opposition to the Trump family couldn't help but acknowledge the strength and conviction that Melania had displayed. Some mocked the interviewer, while others took a moment to commend Melania for her clarity in an increasingly polarized world. But perhaps the most significant outcome of this epic exchange was how it reshaped the narrative surrounding Melania Trump. Throughout her time in the public eye, she had often been criticized for her silence, her reluctance to engage in political discussions, and her relatively low profile compared to other political figures. Critics often painted her as someone who preferred to stay out of the limelight, content with her role as First Lady, but unwilling to step into the fray of national discourse. That perception, however, was turned on its head in that one brief, but powerful moment on live television. Melania's response demonstrated that she was not just a passive figure in her husband's political world, but a woman with her own voice and her own convictions. Her refusal to back down in the face of aggressive questioning revealed a side of her that many had not seen before. For the first time, the American public was able to witness a different aspect of Melania Trump, someone who was not afraid to challenge the media narrative, someone who would stand by her beliefs even when faced with intense scrutiny.